Article 25 of the Constitution of Ukraine, literally. Ukraine guarantees care and protection to its citizens who are outside its borders. It doesn't say there that it may or may not guarantee, tries to guarantee, or doesn't guarantee if a war starts. There's nothing like that there. It clearly says guarantees there. And now let's look at Law 4502, signed in January of 26. This is the same law about multiple citizenship. And it says there that people subject to criminal proceedings are denied consular services without electronic military registration documents. They are also denied consular services. Without military registration, consular services are also denied. This is especially true now in light of recent events. Ukraine is lobbying in Brussels at the European Union level to cancel protection for men of conscription age from 23 to 60 years old. Actually, we have an interesting story developing, but today we'll go through the documents. Because there are two documents, one country, and a direct contradiction, and there are questions that no one has officially asked anyone. Does Law 4502 comply with the Constitution of Ukraine? If not, then why is the Constitutional Court silent? And in general, the law on multiple citizenship actually violates many articles of the Constitution of Ukraine. For example, the fact that a citizen of Ukraine has only one citizenship, but we see that no one has even asked the Constitutional Court. And even the Constitutional Court itself, it's unclear what they're doing. Probably it could be dissolved, and all the judges of the Constitutional Court could be sent to the front lines to defend Ukraine. So, let's take a closer look today at the protection of Ukrainians abroad and how the state actually treats its citizens. Subscribe to the channel, be sure to like, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell under the video so you don't miss new episodes. Thank you to each of you. First, the exact text. Once again, Article 25 of the Constitution of Ukraine. A citizen of Ukraine cannot be deprived of citizenship and the right to change citizenship. A citizen of Ukraine cannot be expelled from Ukraine or extradited to another state. Ukraine guarantees care and protection to its citizens who are abroad. Next, Article 21 of the Constitution of Ukraine. Human rights and freedoms are inalienable and inviolable. Article 22 of the Constitution of Ukraine. The rights and freedoms of individuals and citizens enshrined in this constitution are not exhaustive. Constitutional rights and freedoms are guaranteed and cannot be abolished. When adopting new laws or amending existing laws, it is not allowed to narrow the content and scope of existing rights and freedoms. And Article 22 is key. It directly prohibits the narrowing of rights when adopting new laws, right? Consular services are the implementation of the constitutional right to care and protection abroad. Restricting these services is a narrowing of the right, which Article 22 directly prohibits. But we see that the current Ukrainian authorities, yes, and I hope this government won't be eternal, don't care about what's written in the main law of Ukraine, which they love to refer to so much and mention Article 65. So now, what is actually written in the law? Law 4502 from January 16, 2026 states that consular services are not provided to persons against whom criminal proceedings have been initiated. To persons who have not completed or have not received an electronic military registration document through the Reserve Plus portal or through DIA, persons who are registered for military service, as well as those who are not registered for military service, are also not provided with consular services. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine officially stated, the decision to suspend the provision of consular services to a certain category of Ukrainian citizens, as defined by law, is a temporary measure caused by the need to resolve issues related to the military registration of citizens of mobilization age who are abroad. In other words, the state itself admits that this is not about protecting citizens' rights, it's about resolving issues of military registration, and consular services are used only as a tool for registration purposes. Exactly the same as lobbying for the cancellation of temporary protection for men aged 23 to 60. This is also not about neglecting Ukrainian citizens, it's simply about solving some personal issues by restricting other rights of Ukrainian citizens. So, actually, let's move on to where the legal conflict with the Constitution of Ukraine is, and I don't understand why I have to analyze this instead of the Constitutional Court. The Constitution says that the consulate protects the citizen. Law 4502 says that the consulate refuses a citizen if he does not meet certain conditions. Next, moving on. We have something called the presumption of innocence, but in Ukraine that's long gone, because here even a summons is enough to label someone a draft dodger. Absolutely everyone gets labeled, except for those who have actually been legally recognized as draft dodgers. A separate and very important aspect is refusal during criminal proceedings. Because Article 62 of the Constitution of Ukraine clearly states that a person is considered innocent of committing a crime and cannot be subjected to criminal punishment until their guilt is proven in accordance with the law and established by a guilty verdict of the court. That is, criminal proceedings are not a verdict. It's just a formality. It's the process of investigation, a suspicion that still needs to be proven. But for some reason, Law 4502 denies consular services already at the stage of just having criminal proceedings, before any verdict, before guilt is proven. That is, a person is actually innocent, but consular services are already restricted for them. In other words, a person who is a suspect, not convicted, is legally innocent. But in fact, they are punished by being denied consular services. This is also a direct violation of the presumption of innocence, which is enshrined in the Constitution of Ukraine. And we see that today, our corrupt officials, top-level corrupt officials, from the highest echelons of power, from the office of the president, from the cabinet of ministers of Ukraine, from the Verkhovna Rada, they are considered innocent. And they can get out on minimal bail and continue living their lives while the case is dragged out endlessly and eventually closed somewhere along the way. But if you don't have access to money and power, then it's against you. Any kind of criminal case, even a baseless one, can be opened against you, and then consular services will be closed to you as long as this case is hanging over you. Vlastne. Now let's get to the most important legal question, which is also often pointed out by those who actually restrict the rights of Ukrainians. The Constitution allows for the restriction of citizens' rights, but only under certain conditions. Article 64 clearly states that constitutional rights and freedoms of a person and a citizen cannot be restricted except in cases provided for by the Constitution of Ukraine. Under martial law or a state of emergency, certain restrictions on rights and freedoms may be imposed, specifying the duration of these restrictions. Martial law is in effect in Ukraine, which means that theoretically the state can restrict rights. However, there are three conditions for the lawful restriction of these rights. The first condition is that the restriction must be provided for by law. Law 45.02 exists. This condition is met. The second condition is that the restriction must be proportionate to the goal. Is the refusal to issue a passport proportionate to the goal of forcing a person to register for military service? This is a matter of debate. There are less burdensome ways to achieve the same goal, and the third restriction cannot affect the very essence of the right. That is, refusing a passport can actually leave a person without documents, which affects the very essence of the right to identity and to assignment. That is why the legal question of whether Law 45.02 complies with the Constitution remains open, and the answer to it should be given by the Constitutional Court. But we see that our Constitutional Court has decided to sit with its eyes closed, at least since February 24, 2022. There is a direct legal conflict between the Constitution and Law 45.02. It is obvious to any lawyer who has to submit an application to the Constitutional Court. 45 or more members of Parliament, the President of Ukraine, the Commissioner of the Verkhovna Rada for Human Rights, the Supreme Court, or the Cabinet of Ministers. Why has none of these bodies submitted a constitutional petition without a public response? The Ombudsman, Commissioner for Human Rights Dmytro Lubinets, should be protecting citizens' rights from such restrictions, but there has been no public constitutional petition from him. So there may be two explanations. First, either the lawyers of these bodies believe that the law is constitutional, or there is no political will to challenge it under martial law, or third, it's just convenient. Because as long as no one appeals to the Constitutional Court, the procedure that could question the nonsense currently being passed in the Verkhovna Rada doesn't even begin. By the way, this law was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada by Zelensky personally. Both explanations don't change the question. If the Constitution guarantees the protection of citizens abroad, who checks that this guarantee is being fulfilled? And the answer, friends, is no one. No one checks, and no one is going to check whether your rights are being protected abroad. Moreover, the current Ukrainian authorities are doing everything to make your life abroad as difficult and as bad as possible. And tell me, please, has even one consulate or embassy ever helped you personally during all the years you've been abroad with any issues, whether it's bullying, discrimination, or any kind of inequality? Has a consulate or embassy ever helped you even once? Or maybe have they in any way made your life abroad even a tiny bit easier? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. I look forward to reading them. Have a great day and see you next time.